Tempest in Teyvat, Rimuru's Elemental Odyssey by KabirSingh808. The Secrets Beneath the Chasm. As the swirling portal finally settled, the group found themselves in an eerie, open space, the air thick with an unsettling pressure. The ground beneath them felt unnatural, solid yet shifting, as if reality itself was unstable. Strange glowing symbols flickered on the walls, illuminating the area in an ominous glow. Rimuru, standing at the front, turned to see Ito, who looked on the verge of tears, his expression a mix of regret and panic. In Rimuru's hand was a large bag filled with beans, which he playfully shook. "Now, what did I tell you not to do, huh?" Rimuru said, raising an eyebrow. Ito let out a nervous chuckle, sweat dripping from his forehead. Hey, compadre, we can talk this out, you know. No need to get all scary." He took a hesitant step back, clearly feeling the weight of his mistake. Before Rimuru could continue his scolding, the portal behind them flickered violently. Suddenly, Yanfei, Yellen, and Kuki leapt through, barely landing on their feet as the portal abruptly sealed shut behind them. Rimuru, Ether, and Paimon turned towards the new arrivals, their expressions a mix of exasperation and resignation. Rimuru sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. "Well, what did I expect? Obviously, none of you would listen to me." Yanfei let out an awkward laugh, scratching the back of her head. "Well, we were worried about you guys, so." Rimuru cut her off with a raised hand. "Whatever. Just don't wander off. This place is dangerous. The closer you stay to me, the better." Yanfei nodded, realizing the seriousness of the situation. "Wait, does that mean you're letting us come with you?" she asked, surprised. "Yes," Rimuru admitted, crossing his arms. "But that doesn't mean you get to go wherever you want. If you get lost, there's no guarantee we can find you again." His eyes sharpened. "You'd be trapped here forever." That last sentence sent a chill down Yanfei's spine, and she gave a quick nod of understanding. Then Rimuru turned back to Ito, raising the bag of beans once more. "And especially you," Rimuru added, narrowing his eyes. Ito, feeling the pressure, furiously nodded his head like a scolded child. "Why yeah, got it. Not going anywhere. Sticking right with ya, compadre." Kuki sighed and stepped forward, bowing slightly. "I'm sorry for boss's actions. I'll make sure he doesn't do anything reckless again." Rimuru waved her off. "Don't mind it. I just don't want anyone to die because of some dumb mistake." He then turned to face the entire group, his tone shifting back to serious. "We're getting out of here immediately after we find Xiao." Ether's eyes widened slightly. "Wait, Xiao is here too?" Rimuru nodded. "Yeah, that's why I'm not leaving yet." His expression darkened slightly. "Besides, we have something important to figure out." Ether and Paimon quickly understood what he meant, Celestia. They still needed answers, and this domain, filled with chaotic energy, might hold some truth about the heavenly principles. Yanfei caught onto their expressions and furrowed her brows. "What do you mean by that?" Rimuru shook his head. "Don't mind it." Yanfei sighed but didn't press further. Just then, Yellen had already begun roaming around the platform, examining strange carvings on the ground, seemingly deep in thought. Rimuru let out another sigh as he noticed her wandering off. "I swear, she better not be the one to get lost." With that, the group prepared to venture deeper into the mysterious and unstable domain. The eerie silence of the chaotic domain was only broken by the group's footsteps as they wandered deeper into the strange space. The dim, glowing symbols on the walls cast flickering shadows, making it hard to determine the true size of the place. Eventually, they reached the edge of the ground they were walking on and came to a halt. What lay before them was a breathtaking yet unnerving sight, a labyrinth of floating platforms scattered across the void-like space. Some of these platforms were positioned higher, others lower, and many seemed to be completely unconnected. The sight made it clear that traversing this domain wouldn't be simple. Yanfei adjusted her glasses as she observed the layout. "This place is like a maze in the sky. There's no clear way forward." Ether crossed his arms, frowning. "How do we even move across?" Near them, a strange cube-like structure nearby on the platform, glowing faintly. Rimuru noticed it and smirked. "Well, let's see what this does." The group approached the switch, and Rimuru pressed it down. Immediately, a deep rumbling sound echoed throughout the domain as the platform in front of them began to rotate. A second later, shimmering translucent blue stairs materialized in the air, connecting their platform to the newly rotated one. Paimon gulped as she hovered slightly higher, nervously eyeing the glowing stairs. I don't know why, but this place is giving Paimon a really bad vibe. Ito laughed, placing his hands on his hips confidently. Don't worry, flying lavender melon. As long as you stick with us, you'll be just fine. Paimon puffed up her cheeks in annoyance. I don't wanna hear that from you, bull chucker. Yellen, who had been quietly observing the surroundings, finally spoke up. Enough chit-chat. We don't have time to waste. Rimuru nodded. Agreed. Let's move. The group cautiously stepped onto the translucent staircase, watching as their reflections shimmered faintly beneath them. The stairs felt solid, but the energy they were made of pulsated strangely, making them feel almost alive. As they reached the next platform, slightly lower than the last one, the ground beneath them trembled. Without warning, several pyro slimes emerged, their bodies igniting in bursts of flame. Before anyone else could react, Rimuru raised his hand and instantly obliterated the slimes with a swift energy wave, reducing them to nothing. Let's move forward, Rimuru said calmly, as if the fight was nothing. Yanfei narrowed her eyes as she walked beside him. You seem to be in a hurry. Is something wrong? Rimuru glanced at her before looking ahead. Am I? Maybe. Yellen, her sharp intuition picking up on his tension, narrowed her eyes. And what could those reasons be? Rimuru stopped for a moment before continuing. I can't tell you. Not until I figure something out myself. Yellen's gaze sharpened. What do you mean by that? Rimuru turned slightly, his golden eyes flickering with an unreadable emotion. Let's just forget about it and move on. Ether and Paimon, already somewhat accustomed to Rimuru's secrets, simply nodded and kept walking. But Yanfei wasn't so easily convinced. As she walked beside Yellen, she whispered, he's hiding something. Quite a lot of things. Yellen nodded slightly, her gaze lingering on Rimuru's back. Definitely. I just hope it doesn't end up affecting Liu. Just as she said that, Rimuru, who was already standing on the next platform, spoke up without even looking at them. Don't worry, he said calmly, it has nothing to do with Liu. Yanfei and Yellen stiffened slightly, surprised that he had heard them from so far away. Ito, oblivious to the tension, whistled in admiration. Oh, nice one, compadre. You can hear them from that far. That's awesome. Rimuru simply nodded, neither confirming nor denying anything. Yanfei crossed her arms, lowering her voice again. We should keep our guard up around him. Yellen gave a small nod. Agreed. He's definitely more than he lets on. Rimuru sighed, fully aware of their growing suspicions, but chose not to say anything. After what felt like an eternity of navigating floating platforms, activating mechanisms, and fighting off hostile creatures, the group finally reached the end of the domain. A familiar-looking portal stood before them, its swirling energy identical to the one they had used to enter this strange place. Ito, exhausted from all the jumping and fighting, grinned widely. Finally, we can get out of here. Several in the group nodded in agreement, visibly relieved. The endless maze of floating stone had been disorienting, and most were eager to return to solid ground. However, amidst the rising excitement, Rimuru remained silent, simply gazing at the portal with an unreadable expression. Then, without another word, he turned around and stepped through it. The rest of the group exchanged uncertain glances. Yanfei adjusted her glasses. That's strange. He seems off. Yellen folded her arms. If he sensed something, he didn't say anything. Either he already knows what's coming, or he's testing something. Ether sighed, stepping forward. Standing around won't get us anywhere. Let's go. Shrugging off their unease, one by one, they all entered the portal. As soon as they exited the other side, a deep feeling of déjà vu crept over them. They stood at the same location in the chasm where they had originally found the portal. The jagged old Liu rock formations, the eerie glowing veins of luminescent ore, and even the cracked ground all looked exactly the same as before. But something was off, there was no longer a portal behind them. Ito blinked, looking around in confusion. Wait a minute, this ain't right. Paimon hovered closer, inspecting the surroundings. Yeah, how did we end up back here? Ito spun around, scanning the area. Isn't this the same place we started? What's happening? Paimon crossed her arms. Did that portal just send us on the same place where we entered it? Before anyone could spiral into panic, Yellen raised a hand. Don't panic, she said firmly before turning to Rimuru. I assume you have an explanation for this. Rimuru sighed, rubbing the back of his head. I do. And honestly, none of you should be surprised. I did warn you all before we entered that portal. Yanfei narrowed her eyes. Explain. Rimuru looked around and gestured at the environment. We may think this is the same place we started, but it's actually not. This is just another part of the chaotic dimension that looks identical to where we began. Ito's face scrunched up in confusion. Wait, so you're saying, we never left this place? Rimuru nodded. That's right. The domain we just cleared spat us out here. But this entire place is a closed loop. Paimon's face paled slightly. So, we're still trapped. Ito scratched his head. So, what, we're stuck in some kinda never-ending maze. Rimuru nodded. That's one way to look at it. But if you don't believe me, go check where we fell from originally. At his suggestion, Ito and Yellen took off towards the location where they had initially fallen from the chasm bed. Sure enough, the entrance was gone. Where there had once been a narrow tunnel leading to where they are now, there was now just solid rock. No cracks, no energy distortion, nothing. Ito let out a nervous laugh. Oh okay, yeah, this is bad. Paimon gulped. So what do we do now? Rimuru, still calm, crossed his arms. Nothing. We find Xiao and get out of here. Ether's expression hardened. So he really is here. Rimuru nodded. Yeah, that's why I wasn't going to leave just yet. Hearing that, Ito's expression brightened slightly. Oh, okay. So, if we find this Xiao guy, then we can finally get out, right? That means you know how to leave. Rimuru let out a small chuckle. Of course I do. Yellen's sharp gaze focused on him. And how exactly are you planning to do that? Rimuru tilted his head. Simple. Teleporting us out. Yanfei nearly stumbled. Wait. You can teleport. Rimuru shrugged. Yes I can. Yanfei adjusted her glasses again. But, teleportation requires an enormous amount of elemental energy. Even the Adepti rarely attempt such a thing with this much people due to the risks involved. Rimuru smirked. For normal people, maybe. But for me, it's not that difficult. Ito let out an impressed whistle. That's my compadre. Always so reliable. Rimuru shot him a tired look. If someone hadn't jumped in without thinking, we wouldn't have been in this mess in the first place. Ito's sweat dropped, scratching the back of his head. Hey, well, I mean, I got curious. Rimuru sighed. Yeah, I know. Paimon, now looking far more relieved, sighed. Phew. Well, if you can teleport us out, then we don't have to worry anymore. We just need to find Xiao, right? But Rimuru's next words immediately killed their relief. It's not that simple. Everyone turned to look at him, confusion and concern evident on their faces. Rimuru's expression darkened slightly. Before we move forward, let me make something very clear. His tone became serious. You all must stay close to me at all times. If anyone gets separated from me, there is a huge chance that you'll be lost in here forever. Paimon's face paled. What do you mean? Rimuru's eyes flickered with power as he explained. This domain isn't just some random chaotic space, it's like a living entity. It reacts to our presence in our mind. The more you struggle to find an exit, the deeper it will trap you. Paimon's wings stiffened as a horrible realization hit her. Wait, are you saying this place is like a monster that's almost eaten us? Rimuru gave her a small smile. Not almost. It already has. Yeep. Paimon yelped, flying a little closer to Ether. Ito, seeing her reaction, laughed heartily. Ha. What, you scared, flying lavender melon? Paimon turned red in frustration, stomping her tiny feet in the air. No, I'm not, you stupid bull-chucker. Their argument echoed through the dark caverns, a strange contrast to the eerie silence of the domain. As Paimon and Ito continued to argue, their voices echoing off the cavern walls, Ether turned to Rimuru with a serious expression. Alright, arguing aside, how do we find Xiao? Rimuru, who had been scanning the environment with narrowed eyes, exhaled and muttered, let's see, before walking toward a dark corner of the cavern. The others watched as he stopped before a seemingly ordinary wall, his eyes carefully examining its surface. What's he doing? Ito whispered to Yanfei. Yanfei, pushing up her glasses, frowned. Probably noticed something we didn't. Turning back to the group, Rimuru suddenly asked, "Do you all see what I see here?" The group exchanged confused glances before turning toward the wall in question. Yellen, with her keen observational skills, stepped forward. She placed a gloved hand against the stone and ran her fingers across it carefully, pressing against certain sections. After a moment, her violet eyes flickered in realization. "This is fake." Rimuru smirked. "Nice observation." Without hesitation, he raised his hand and released a small burst of elemental energy. The moment his energy made contact, the wall shimmered and distorted like rippling water, before vanishing entirely, revealing a hidden passage leading deeper into the cave. Ether crossed his arms. "An illusion, huh?" Rimuru nodded. "This place is filled with them. If we don't stay sharp, we'll be stuck here forever." Paimon floated cautiously behind Ether, glancing warily at the newly revealed path. "Creepy. But at least we're making progress." Rimuru stepped inside the cave without hesitation. "Let's go." The others exchanged a glance, then nodded and followed him in. The tunnel was dark, the air thick with an unnatural silence. The deeper they walked, the more they felt an unexplainable pressure weighing down on them. After some minutes, they reached a dead end. But there was something else waiting for them. Standing before them was another portal, identical to the one that had first led them into this chaotic space. Its swirling energy pulsed gently, radiating an eerie glow that cast moving shadows across the cavern walls. Yanfei frowned. "Wait, this portal." Yellen narrowed her eyes. "It looks just like the one that trapped us here." Paimon's eyes widened. "Is this the exit?" Rimuru shook his head. "Of course not." Yanfei turned to him. "Then what is it?" Rimuru folded his arms. "A deeper layer. This portal will only take us further inside." Ether frowned. "So we really can't escape this place." Ito's brows furrowed as he waved a hand at the portal. Wait, why are we even going inside, then? If it's just gonna take us deeper, why not look for another way out?" Paimon quickly nodded in agreement. "Why yeah, I don't wanna get even more lost in this creepy place." For the first time, Ito and Paimon were completely in sync. "This is the first time I agree with Flying Lavender Melon," Ito muttered. Paimon scowled. Hey, don't call me that." Rimuru let out a small chuckle before his face became serious again. "You don't have a choice." Ito and Paimon blinked. "Huh." Rimuru exhaled and explained, "There is no exit. At least, not in the way you're thinking." The group's faces darkened slightly as Rimuru continued. "This place is alive. It's a sentient entity that has already consumed us. Do you really think it'll just let us waltz out the way we came?" Yellen folded her arms. "You're saying the only paths it provides will always lead deeper?" Rimuru nodded. "Exactly. No matter how much you try to find a way out, this place will just keep leading you further in." Paimon shuddered. That's terrifying. If you weren't here, we'd probably be stuck forever." Ito nodded seriously. "Yeah, I gotta admit, that's pretty messed up." Yellen turned to Rimuru. "Then tell me, do you think the domain on the other side of the portal will be the same as before?" Rimuru looked at the swirling energy for a moment before replying, "Who knows? We'll find out once we enter." Yellen gave him a calculating glance before nodding. "All right, then, lead the way." Without another word, Rimuru stepped into the portal. One by one, the others followed. The moment the last person entered, the portal behind them closed. When the group emerged on the other side, they were met with an impossible sight. They were standing in an endless void, a space with no sky, no ground, no horizon. Only 6 massive platforms suspended in the vast, empty abyss. Each platform was enormous, as wide as several meters, and connected to each other in a way that formed a sphere. One below them, one above them, one to the left, one to the right, one to the front, one to the back. The platforms were connected by curved rock bridges, their winding structures twisting in unnatural ways, forming a closed loop. It looked less like a normal landscape and more like a prison, a 6-sided cage in the middle of an endless void. Ether took a slow step forward, gazing at the impossible geometry around them. "What is this place?" Yanfei adjusted her glasses, her sharp mind analyzing the structure. "It almost looks like a giant puzzle." Rimuru narrowed his eyes. "I doubt it's just for show." The platform they had landed on was different from the others. At its center stood a ruin-like structure, resembling the light actuators from Mondstadt's Stormterror lair. However, instead of Mondstadt's runes, this one had symbols in Liu's language imprinted in 4 directions around it. Each symbol was glowing faintly, as if waiting to be activated. Yanfei approached and examined the markings. These are ancient Liu scripts. Yellen, standing beside her, frowned. Can you read them? Yanfei nodded slowly. I can, but they seem incomplete. Paimon gulped. So, what do we do now? Rimuru stepped forward, eyes glowing faintly. We solve the puzzle. Ether, observing the ancient platform with glowing symbols, turned to Rimuru with a questioning look. So, how do we solve this? Rimuru, who had been quietly analyzing the environment, suddenly narrowed his eyes and muttered, "Wait a minute." He took a step back, looking around at the other platforms, his gaze darting between the curved bridges, the arrangement of the 6 platforms, and the mysterious symbols. The others watched him in silence, waiting for him to explain, but he seemed lost in thought. Paimon, growing restless, crossed her arms and sighed. Well, since Rimuru is doing his thing, don't you guys think we should eat something? Ito turned to her with a surprised look. Wait, you're hungry? Paimon pouted. Of course, it's been, like, half a day since we last ate. Ito blinked in confusion. What are you talking about? It's only been 2 to 3 hours at most. Paimon gasped. No way. Bull Chucker, it's been way longer than that. Kuki, who had been silent until now, tilted her head. Actually, hasn't it been only about an hour? At her words, everyone turned to each other, a wave of realization washing over them. Wait, how much time has passed? Ether muttered, his brows furrowing. As murmurs spread through the group, Rimuru approached them, having overheard their discussion. Ito immediately waved him over. Oh, you're back, compadre. Tell us, how much time has actually passed since we entered this place? The group turned their eyes toward Rimuru expectantly. However, Rimuru simply replied, it doesn't matter right now. The answer confused them, but Ether's expression suddenly shifted as he remembered something. Wait, didn't you say there are places in the chasm where time runs differently? Some places go faster, some go slower. Rimuru nodded. Yes. And in this space, time doesn't follow normal rules at all. It reacts to our will. The group fell silent. Rimuru continued, the more you think about time, the more it will play tricks on you. If you focus too much on how long you've been here, it might make you feel as if days have passed, or mere minutes. Paimon shuddered. Yikes. Paimon should have expected something weird like that. Rimuru chuckled. Don't think too much about it. You're hungry, right? Paimon hesitated for a second before awkwardly laughing. Well, yeah, a little. Rimuru smiled. Then let's take a break. Yellen, who had been watching quietly, raised an eyebrow. Is it really safe to rest here? In an unknown domain? Rimuru waved a hand dismissively. Don't worry, we won't be staying long. You guys eat, and I'll take care of the puzzle. Ether looked at him. So, you figured it out? Rimuru nodded confidently. Yeah. Leave it to me. With a flick of his hand, stone chairs and a table emerged from the ground, forming a small resting area. He turned back to the group. So, what do you guys want to eat? Ito's eyes widened. Wait, we can't ask for anything. Rimuru grinned. Of course, ramen. Ito immediately shouted. The others quickly placed their orders, except for Yellen, who remained silent. Rimuru noticed and asked, you don't want anything? She shook her head. I'm not hungry. Rimuru nodded. All right. Then keep an eye on everyone while I work. Make sure no one wanders off. Yellen smirked. Got it. With that, Rimuru spread his wings and took off toward the puzzle, leaving the group to enjoy their meal. As Rimuru landed on one of the connected platforms, he examined the symbols etched into the stone. Each platform contained a different set of runes, and he quickly realized that they needed to be activated in a specific order. The moment he completed the first puzzle on one platform, the entire platform rumbled, and monsters appeared. Ether and the others, watching from their resting spot, turned to the scene. Ito grinned. Oh ho, looks like a fight's about to start. Paimon, already chewing on food, nodded. Yeah, but Rimuru's got this. Yanfei observed the scene and muttered to Ether, he seems to be enjoying this. To think someone would actually have fun in a place like this. Ether smiled. That's just Rimuru for you, always ahead of the game. As they ate in peace, Rimuru effortlessly wiped out the monsters with swift, calculated strikes, activating each puzzle in sequence. Finally, after solving all 6 puzzles, a glowing pathway formed above them. The center of the highest platform had dissolved, revealing a new way forward. Rimuru landed back where the group was waiting and dusted off his hands. All done. Let's go. The group finished their meal, gathered their belongings, and followed Rimuru to the edge of the platform, where a portal-like mechanism transported them upward. As they arrived on the new platform, they looked down and realized, the main platform they had just been on was now above them. Ito whistled. Whoa, look at that. Yanfei narrowed her eyes. Looks like gravity doesn't work normally here. Rimuru nodded. Indeed. But before he could continue, a rift suddenly tore open in the air. The group immediately tensed, and Rimuru instinctively drew his katana, eyes locked on the disturbance. Ito frowned. What is that? Rimuru tightened his grip. Stay back. Don't go near it. The rift began to shift and distort, forming into an illusionary figure. As the light settled, a familiar figure appeared, Xiao. Rimuru immediately lowered his weapon upon recognizing him. He took a step forward. Xiao, where are you? The illusion remained silent for a moment. Paimon hesitated before calling out, Hey! Xiao, can you hear us? Finally, Xiao's voice broke through, distorted and faint. Why, are you here? Rimuru's expression softened. To rescue you, of course. But before Xiao could respond further, his expression suddenly twisted in pain. This domain is. Before he could finish his sentence, the illusion abruptly vanished. The group stood in stunned silence. Ether clenched his fists. That didn't look good. He seemed hurt. Paimon nodded, her worry evident. Yeah, we need to find him fast. Rimuru exhaled. Then let's go. He glanced at the path ahead, a deep drop leading to another area below. Yanfei hesitated. Wait, is it really okay to jump? That's a long way down. Rimuru smirked. Don't worry. There's water below, you'll be fine. Without another word, he leapt into the abyss. Ether and the others exchanged glances before following suit, plunging into the unknown. They landed safely in the water below, ready for whatever awaited them next. As everyone emerged from the water, they were met with the sight of an enormous rock door, ancient and imposing. The surface was adorned with carvings of unknown origin, faintly illuminated by the dim glow of the domain. The air carried a heavy stillness, and the tension among the group was evident. Ito, always the first to speak, scratched his head and said, so where do we go next? Rimuru, stepping forward, examined the door before glancing to the side. First, we open this gate. Ito tilted his head in confusion. But how? It's locked, right? Rimuru sighed, shaking his head before pointing at a small cube-like mechanism nearby. From here, of course. Ito squinted at the switch, then let out an awkward chuckle. Oh, haha, you sure got some good eyes, compadre. Almost no one saw that. Kuki folded her arms, sighing. Boss, you're the only one who didn't see it. Ito turned to her, looking betrayed. Hey, whose side are you on? Ignoring their banter, Rimuru focused on the door, his expression serious. Stay sharp. We don't know what might be lurking behind this door. The group nodded in unison, their playful mood shifting into cautious anticipation. Rimuru reached for the switch and activated it. A low rumbling noise echoed through the chamber, but the door remained shut. He frowned and tried again. Still nothing. Rimuru narrowed his eyes and immediately connected with Seal. Seal, what's happening? Seal responded with a calm, analytical tone. This door is not a simple mechanism. It is trying to reach into your mind and extract your fears. It likely attempts to manifest them as an obstacle beyond the threshold. However, due to my interference, all forms of mental intrusion are blocked, preventing it from reading your thoughts. That is why the door remains closed. Rimuru nodded, understanding the situation. He turned back to the group. Paimon fluttered closer, looking at the motionless door. It's not opening. Are we sure this is the right switch? Ito crossed his arms and smirked. See, I knew something was off about that switch. Rimuru immediately shut him down. No, this is the right switch. The problem is that it's a trap. The person who opens the door has to face their worst nightmares and then we will see what happens next. But since my mind is immune to manipulation, it can't access my fears, so the door won't open. Yelan's sharp eyes narrowed slightly. Wait, you're saying you have resistance against mental attacks? Rimuru nodded. More than just resistance, I am completely immune to mind control and illusion-based abilities. No one can access my thoughts or alter my mind unless I allow it. Yanfei's eyes widened in fascination. That's incredible. But then, how do we open the door? The group exchanged hesitant glances. No one particularly wanted to step forward. Seeing their uncertainty, Rimuru sighed. Looks like I'll have to be the one to do it. Paimon hovered anxiously. But don't you have resistance? Won't it still be stuck? Rimuru smirked. I can temporarily erase my resistance. Paimon's jaw nearly dropped. Wait, you can do that. He nodded. Inside his mind, Ciel's voice echoed in his thoughts. Master, I advise against this. If this mechanism truly extracts your fears, it may attempt to trap you in a fabricated nightmare. Rimuru reassured her. It's fine, Ciel. You're with me, right? If anything goes wrong, I can always teleport back to my clone. With that, Rimuru summoned a clone and positioned it outside the door. Then, taking a deep breath, he stepped toward the switch. Ciel, remove my resistance. A pause. Then, Ciel reluctantly replied. Understood, reducing resistance. The moment the resistance dropped, the switch glowed ominously, and the door groaned as it slowly began to move. A heavy gust of wind rushed past them as an unseen force stirred within. Ito's eyes widened. Whoa, it's actually moving. Paimon, unimpressed, scoffed. We know that, bull chucker. But before anyone could take another step, darkness swallowed Rimuru whole as he was pulled inside. As Rimuru stepped forward, the world around him twisted. The darkness receded, revealing a familiar yet horrifying sight. Countless bodies lay strewn across the ground. Their faces he recognized, were twisted in agony. He knew them all. Goblins, ogres, lizardmen, Kijin, his friends. The world around him continued to morph, expanding into a massive, burning city. His city, Tempest. Flames consumed the buildings, and smoke choked the sky. Screams echoed through the streets as humans clad in armor pursued fleeing monsters, cutting them down without mercy. Outside the door, the others watched in shock as the scene unfolded. Yelan narrowed her eyes. What is this place? A city. Yanfei frowned. It's massive, and under attack. Ether's expression darkened. This must be his nation. Ito blinked in disbelief. Wait, you're telling me he's a king? Paimon sighed. Oh yeah, we kind of forgot to tell Bull Chucker about that. Kuki muttered, to think he was royalty this whole time, but why is his kingdom being attacked? Ether's voice was grim. He told me once, when his nation was attacked by a human kingdom out of fear and hatred. They saw monsters prospering and couldn't accept it. Many were killed that day. Paimon added, yeah, and since his nation became prosperous in just I think 4 to 5 years, they kind of see them as a huge threat. Yanfei's brows furrowed. A nation of monsters. That alone is an astonishing feat, and he built it in just 5 years. Yelan crossed her arms. That explains why humans wanted to destroy it. A nation growing that powerful in such a short time would be seen as a threat. Inside the illusion, Rimuru continued walking through the ruins, his expression unreadable. He stepped over the bodies of his fallen friends without pause. Shion, Benimaru, Shuna, Gobta, all lifeless, cold. But he didn't stop. The others watched in silence as Rimuru entered a massive throne room. And there, sitting on the throne, was himself. The illusionary Rimuru looked directly at him. Why? Rimuru's eyes narrowed. The illusion's expression twisted with anger. Why are you different? Rimuru said nothing. The illusion suddenly screamed, its voice distorting. Why every good thing happened to you and not me? The moment those words left its mouth, the entire illusion shattered like glass, revealing nothing but a cold, empty stone wall. Silence. Rimuru exhaled, his gaze indifferent. So it was all meaningless after all. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the door. As Rimuru stepped out of the stone doorway, the heavy doors groaned before shutting tightly behind him, sealing away the nightmare inside. The room fell into an eerie silence, only the faint echoes of the closing mechanism filling the air. The dim glow of the cavern's crystal formations cast flickering lights upon his face, highlighting his calm yet unreadable expression. Ether and Paimon immediately approached him with concern written all over their faces. "Are you okay?" Ether asked, scanning Rimuru's expression for any signs of distress. Rimuru, unfazed, gave them a reassuring smile. "Yeah, I'm completely fine." Letting out a sigh, he walked over to a nearby rock and sat down, stretching slightly before exhaling. "Well, looks like this is the end." Yanfei, who had been watching him carefully, walked over with a composed yet slightly worried look. "I hope you're all right, Rimuru." Rimuru nodded in appreciation. "Yeah, thanks for asking." However, Yanfei's next words confused him. "I'm sorry for your loss." His brows furrowed slightly as he looked up at her. "What do you mean?" Yanfei gave him a sympathetic glance before responding. "Well, you lost your nation, right?" Rimuru's eyes widened slightly. Before he could respond, Ether stepped forward, realizing the misunderstanding. "I think there's some confusion here." Ito, still trying to piece everything together, looked between Ether and Yanfei. "Wait, what do you mean, traveler?" Rimuru sighed and leaned back slightly. "Well, I think they told you that my nation was attacked by humans." Kuki, who had been silent up until now, nodded. "Yes, they did. That illusion we saw, it was your greatest fear, wasn't it? Your nation falling." Rimuru nodded. "That's right. But the thing you saw inside. It was highly exaggerated. My nation never actually fell. It's still standing strong and functioning properly." Yanfei's eyes widened in realization. "Ah, I see now. Since that illusion shows a person's greatest fear, what we saw was an exaggerated version of your worst nightmare." Yellen, who had been listening closely, folded her arms. "That makes sense, but that still means your nation was attacked, correct?" Rimuru nodded, his expression growing slightly serious. "Yes, it was." Yellen raised a brow. "Since your nation is still standing, that means you must have won." A small smirk tugged at the corner of Rimuru's lips. "Of course, I did." Yellen nodded in approval. "That's good, I think. But still, you must have lost some people in the battle." Rimuru shook his head. "No, I didn't." The group blinked in confusion. Kuki frowned slightly. "You're saying, you didn't have a single casualty?" Rimuru nodded again. "That's right." Yanfei tilted her head, glancing at Ether and Paimon. "But, the traveler and Paimon told us that you mentioned losing people in the past." Rimuru's gaze softened slightly as he nodded. "We did, but I brought them back to life." Silence fell upon the group. The only ones unfazed were Ether and Paimon, who already knew. Ito's eyes nearly bulged out of his head. "Whaaaat. You can bring the dead back to life." Rimuru let out a small chuckle at his exaggerated reaction. "Well, yes. But only if their souls are still within reach." Yanfei's mouth slightly parted in amazement. "That's still incredible. I don't think even the Adepti or the Archons can do something like that." Yellen, who had been silent, looked at him carefully. "You must be powerful beyond our comprehension." Ito suddenly grinned, pointing at Rimuru. "Dude, you are so cool, compadre." Rimuru rolled his eyes. "Whatever." Yellen, still curious, narrowed her eyes. "If humans attacked your nation, then does that mean you harbor hatred for them now?" Rimuru shook his head immediately. "No, I don't. I know there are always idiots out there who act without thinking, but I don't judge an entire race based on the actions of a few." Yellen exhaled softly. "That's surprisingly reasonable. Most people would have developed some resentment after something like that." She then gave him a sharp look. "So, what happened to the nation and army that attacked you?" Rimuru's expression turned cold. "Of course, they had to pay for the cost of war and the damage they caused to my people." Yellen's gaze sharpened. "And as for their army?" Rimuru gave a knowing look. "I think you already know the answer." Yellen didn't say anything, but she understood immediately. Ito, however, was still processing everything. "Wait, are you saying that?" Kuki, standing beside him, sighed and nodded. "Yes, boss. Their entire army was wiped out." Ito fell silent, his usual carefree expression momentarily fading as he absorbed the weight of that statement. Even Yanfei, who is used to dealing with harsh realities, looked taken aback a little. After a brief moment, Ito let out a low whistle. "Man, remind me never to get on your bad side, compadre." Rimuru gave a small smirk. I think that'd be for the best. As the weight of his words settled upon them, the cavern felt even colder than before. As Rimuru sat on the rock, his mind processing everything that had just happened, Yellen crossed her arms and leaned slightly forward. Her sharp gaze focused on him as she asked. So, what now? There's nothing behind this door, and we're still trapped here. Rimuru exhaled, his fingers tapping against his knee as he formulated a new plan. Well, then, I have another theory. Yanfei immediately perked up, adjusting her hat slightly. Oh, do tell. The rest of the group also turned their attention toward him. Rimuru leaned forward slightly, his tone steady but serious. We already know that this place creates illusions and traps people within them. Everyone nodded in agreement. The illusions they had faced were all powerful and disturbingly realistic, feeding on their fears and doubts. So, Rimuru continued, if this place is reading our minds and making our thoughts into reality, what if we use that against it? Yanfei's eyes widened slightly as she processed his words. Wait, are you saying that if we all think about Xiao, this space will connect us to him? Rimuru shook his head. It's not that simple. There's a high chance it will just create another illusion of Xiao rather than letting us meet the real one. Yellen frowned. Then how does this help us? Rimuru smirked. Because there's a catch. Even if this space creates an illusion, it will still create a rift in reality. No matter what, this place has to read Xiao's mind in order to form that illusion. And that, he pointed his thumb at himself, is where I come in. I'll use brute force to tear through that rift and drag Xiao out of it directly. Silence followed his words as everyone processed the boldness of the plan. After a moment, Yellen raised an eyebrow. That's an interesting plan, but are you sure your body can handle it? Wouldn't the rift cut into your hand or worse? Rimuru grinned confidently. Don't worry about me, I can handle it. All you need to do is make sure you focus on thinking about Xiao. The stronger the connection, the easier it will be to reach him. Yanfei, Yellen, Ito, and Kuki exchanged glances before nodding in agreement. All right, let's do it, Yanfei said, determination in her eyes. Rimuru prepared himself and stood up, raising his hand as 3 clones materialized around him, each one sitting in a meditative pose. The clones began gathering elemental energy, their bodies radiating with power as they transferred their energy to his real body. The faint glow of his anemo and geo energy illuminated the cavern, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Rimuru looked at the group and gave a small nod. All right, let's begin. Everyone took a deep breath and focused their thoughts. They thought of Xiao, his piercing golden eyes, his solemn expression, his presence that carried the weight of countless battles. They focused on their memories of him, the Adeptus who fought tirelessly against the darkness, the protector of Liu who carried his burdens alone. As their thoughts synchronized, the space around them began to shift. The air grew heavy, the cavern walls flickering and distorting like ripples on the surface of a disturbed lake. A familiar rift slowly began to form in front of them, its jagged edges swirling with dark energy. From within the rift, a figure began to emerge. It was Xiao, or at least, an illusion of him. His body flickered like a mirage, and just like before, his voice was distorted, cutting in and out between words. Must leave, no time. Despite the broken words, Rimuru smirked. That's good enough for me. He stepped forward, extending his right hand as a massive surge of elemental energy began to condense around his fist. The air trembled as his power reached a peak, swirling violently as if the very fabric of reality itself was bending to his will. Then, he punched. A deafening shockwave exploded outward as Rimuru's fist tore through the rift. Unlike before, where people could simply pass through it, this time the rift shattered like glass, cracks spreading in every direction. Shards of energy scattered into the air, dissolving into nothingness. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, something moved inside the rift. Rimuru narrowed his eyes and extended his hand further into the void, his fingers brushing against something solid. His smirk widened. Found you. With a powerful pull, Rimuru yanked something, or rather, someone, out of the rift. A figure tumbled forward, their body limp and unstable. It was Xiao. But this time, it was not an illusion. As the rift shattered, and Rimuru pulled Xiao out, the entire group froze, watching as the Adeptus collapsed onto the ground. Rimuru stood before him, eyes narrowing slightly as he observed the bruises and wounds covering Xiao's body. His breathing was heavy, his expression pained, but even then, he tried to maintain his usual stoic demeanor. Rimuru stepped closer and offered his hand. Are you all right? Xiao coughed lightly before gripping Rimuru's hand and pulling himself up. I am fine. His voice was calm, but the exhaustion in his body was obvious. As he steadied himself, the rest of the group rushed toward him. Yanfei sighed in relief, placing a hand on her chest. Conqueror of demons, it's good that you're safe. Xiao gave a slight nod. This is nothing. Rimuru narrowed his eyes at him. Don't try to act tough. Xiao remained silent as Rimuru lifted his hand, materializing a small blue liquid-filled bottle. It gleamed under the dim light of the cavern, the liquid inside swirling as if infused with magic. Here, drink this, Rimuru said, offering the bottle. Paimon hovered closer, peering at the bottle curiously. Ooh, what's this? Rimuru gave a small smirk. A medicine from my world, or more specifically, my nation's specialty, called Full Potion. Ito's eyes lit up. Whoa, so you actually have stuff from your old world with you? Rimuru nodded. Yeah, I still have some reserves from back home. When I arrived in this world, my stored items came with me. Yellen raised an eyebrow. And you're saying that potion is powerful enough to heal him? Rimuru glanced at Xiao and shrugged. It's more than just powerful, it's one of the best healing potions we mass produce. It can restore stamina, close wounds instantly, and even regrow lost limbs. Xiao glanced at the bottle in his hand but hesitated. No need. Save it for someone who truly requires it. I will recover on my own. Rimuru sighed, shaking his head. Just take it. Don't worry about the quantity, I have more than enough. Ether nodded in agreement. Yeah, if Rimuru says it's fine, then you should just take it. Xiao let out a soft breath, realizing there was no point in arguing. With a slight nod, he uncorked the bottle and drank the potion. The moment the liquid touched his tongue, his body began to glow blue. A gentle yet powerful aura enveloped him as the potion's effects took hold. Within seconds, his wounds closed, bruises faded, and his stamina was fully restored. It was as if he had never been injured in the first place. The group stared in absolute shock. Wait, what? Yanfei gasped, her eyes wide with astonishment. Yellen's sharp gaze focused on Rimuru, her mind immediately realizing the implications of such a potion. Yanfei pointed at Xiao. How is this even possible? This isn't normal healing. Rimuru smirked. Surprised. Yanfei quickly nodded. Of course. This potion just reversed all his injuries in an instant. I don't think even an Adeptus, no, even an Archon, could do something like this so casually. Rimuru chuckled. That's because this potion is specially developed in my nation. It's designed to heal all physical wounds and fully restore stamina. Even if someone lost a limb, it could regenerate it within seconds. At his words, everyone except Ether and Paimon turned to stare at him. Yanfei blinked. Wait, you're saying this potion can even regrow limbs? Rimuru nodded casually, as if it were common knowledge. Yanfei shook her head in disbelief. Do you realize how dangerous this is? Yellen crossed her arms. I think she means that this potion could grant an immense advantage in war. Armies could sustain their forces indefinitely if they had access to it. Rimuru's expression remained calm. I know that, but I don't intend to use it for war, unless, of course, someone attacks my nation first. Kuki tilted her head. How did something like this even get developed? Rimuru puffed out his chest slightly, a hint of pride in his voice. It was developed by me and Vesta, the current Minister of Science in my nation. Kuki's eyes narrowed. So you and this Vesta guy created this potion together? Rimuru nodded. That's right. It took a lot of research, but we finally perfected it. Yanfei stared at the bottle still clutched in Xiao's hand, still processing the absurdity of what she had just witnessed. To think you're actually this smart, she muttered. Rimuru blinked in confusion. What? Yanfei quickly waved her hands. Ah, sorry. I didn't mean to disrespect you. Of course, you've been smart from the start. Rimuru chuckled. No offense taken. After a moment, Yanfei sighed and shook her head. But this must be insanely expensive. Rimuru smiled. Not that much. Each bottle costs about 5 gold coins in my nation. Ito's jaw dropped. Hold up. That's way too cheap. Kuki nodded. Yeah, something this powerful should cost way more. Yanfei also nodded. Right. It's unbelievably cheap for something with this level of effectiveness. There has to be a catch. Rimuru smirked. You're right, there is a catch. He looked at them and explained, in my world, gold coins are made of real gold, which is naturally found. But here, Mora is different. Mora isn't mined or found, it's minted through the Geo-Archon's power. Even though he's gone, the KabirSingh is still figuring out a way to maintain its production. If we assume Mora is still being minted in the Golden House, then that means Mora can be mass-produced, which can lead to inflation. He crossed his arms. Meanwhile, gold coins in my world don't have that issue since they are naturally occurring. That means my world's currency is actually more stable than Mora. If I do the calculations. He paused for a moment before continuing. 1 gold coin from my world would be worth somewhere between 1,000 to 2,000 Mora. Everyone except Ether and Paimon went silent for a moment. Kuki sighed. That's still cheap. Rimuru nodded. Exactly. That's why it's so popular in my world. Yellen, who had been observing Rimuru closely, finally spoke, her voice carrying a sense of calculation. And who else, aside from your nation, knows how to make this medicine? Rimuru smirked, tilting his head slightly as if enjoying the moment. No one, of course. The bluntness of his response made everyone pause for a moment. Yanfei folded her arms, raising an eyebrow. So, you basically have a monopoly on this, huh? Rimuru chuckled, waving his hand dismissively. You don't have to put it like that. It's not that other nations can't make potions, but they simply don't have the means or technology to create them. He leaned back slightly, speaking with confidence. The extraction process required to make these potions is something only I know. And, obviously, I'm not just going to hand that knowledge out for free. I do have a nation to run, you know. Yanfei nodded in understanding. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Rimuru continued, his tone becoming more analytical. But there's an important difference between my world and this one. In my world, people use magicules, while here, you use elemental energy. Paimon, who had been floating nearby, blinked in confusion. What does that mean? Rimuru patiently explained. If I had used a potion from my world directly on Xiao, it wouldn't have had any effect whatsoever. That's because yakshas, like Xiao, have elemental energy flowing through their bodies, not magicules. Yellen narrowed her eyes slightly. So, by that logic, your potion shouldn't have worked at all. Rimuru nodded. That's right. However, I made adjustments. I created a new potion by combining this world's elemental energy with my world's magicule-based medicine. This resulted in a hybrid potion that can heal those who possess both elemental energy and magicules. Everyone was once again stunned into silence for a moment. Then, Ito grinned widely, throwing an arm over Kuki's shoulder. That's so cool. Wait, did you make this potion here? Rimuru nodded, smiling. Well, I started working on it after coming into contact with elemental energy for the first time. Once I understood its properties, I spent a few days tweaking and refining the formula until I perfected it. Kuki pushed Ito's arm off her and frowned slightly in thought. In just a few days. Isn't that basically impossible? Yanfei let out a small chuckle. It should be impossible, but this is Rimuru we're talking about. Meanwhile, Yellen's gaze remained focused on Rimuru. Her expression barely changed, but there was a sharpness in her eyes, as though she was analyzing him like a puzzle that didn't quite fit. Rimuru, catching onto this, briefly met her gaze before looking away. He thought about something for a moment but chose not to comment. Xiao, who had remained silent until now, crossed his arms. You can talk about this all you want after we get out of here. Paimon shivered slightly, looking around. Yeah, we should get outside first. This place is way too creepy. Do your thing, Rimuru, and get us out of here. Xiao narrowed his eyes. Wait, you know how to get out. Rimuru smiled, nodding. Of course. With that, Rimuru extended his hands toward Ether and Paimon. All right, everyone, hold hands. We need to stay connected for the teleportation to work properly. The group complied, linking hands with each other. Xiao, however, hesitated for a moment before simply placing his hand on Rimuru's shoulder instead. All right then, Rimuru said with a grin. Let's get out of here. In the blink of an eye, a brilliant flash of blue light engulfed the entire group. The eerie, ominous cavern they had been trapped in disappeared from their sight as Rimuru activated his teleportation skill, transporting them all back to safety. As the bright light of teleportation faded, the group found themselves standing at the surface of the chasm. The suffocating darkness and eerie silence of the underground were gone, replaced by the open sky and the crisp air of Liu's vast landscape. For a moment, everyone simply took a breath, adjusting to the sudden change in surroundings. Yanfei looked around in mild disbelief before speaking. "We're really outside." Rimuru, standing with his arms crossed, smirked. "Of course you are." Yellen, who had been suspicious of Rimuru's methods from the beginning, narrowed her eyes slightly. "So you did actually know how to get us out?" Rimuru just shrugged, unfazed by her skepticism. Kuki let out a sigh of relief. "It doesn't really matter how, at least we're safe now." Ito stretched his arms, grinning. "Yeah, it would have been a huge pain if we got stuck down there forever." Despite the relief in the group, Yanfei still seemed somewhat restless. She looked toward the chasm's depths, her expression thoughtful. "Still, it would have been good if I had found the will." Paimon, floating beside Ether, looked at her with concern. "Is it that important to you? We barely made it out of there." Yanfei nodded. "It is important. The will I'm talking about concerns a special item, a fantastic compass. It was entrusted to someone long ago, who then brought it to the chasm. Since I took it upon myself to ensure that this matter was settled and his will is executed, I wanted to retrieve it, but at least we made it out alive." Rimuru, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "I see, so that's what it was about." He then crossed his arms, his expression turning slightly serious. "Well, if you want to retrieve it, I think you should forget about it, it's not possible." The sudden statement made everyone pause. Yellen's eyes immediately locked onto Rimuru. "What do you mean by that?" Rimuru raised his hand, and with a flick of his wrist, something materialized in his palm. A small compass-like object, new yet intricate, with mysterious Liu carvings along its edges. It had a mystical aura around it. Yanfei and Yellen's eyes widened the moment they saw it. "The fantastic compass!" Yanfei exclaimed. "Where did you get that?" Rimuru twirled the compass between his fingers before calmly replying. "Relax, this isn't the real one, it's just a replica, or should I say a small replica I created based on the original." Yellen's eyes narrowed slightly. "But to make a replica, you would need to have seen the real one first." Rimuru smiled. "Exactly. I actually found the real one deep within the chasm's bed." Yanfei's expression changed to shock. "What? Then why didn't you tell me? Or better yet, why didn't you bring it with you?" Rimuru let out a small sigh, shaking his head. "Let me explain. The real fantastic compass can't be taken outside of the chasm's bed, or rather, the chaotic dimension that lies within it. That's because it was already used as part of a sealing ritual. If I removed it, the seal could break, and I don't think I need to explain why that would be a really bad idea." Ito tilted his head. Wait, hold on, what's a seal even doing down there?" Rimuru placed his hands on his hips. "From what I understand, the person Yanfei mentioned, the one who took the fantastic compass into the chasm, must have used it to create that seal. But here's the thing, I actually didn't find the compass myself." Yanfei blinked. "Wait, what do you mean?" Rimuru smirked slightly. "Remember when Traveler and Paimon told you that I mapped the entire chasm?" Yanfei nodded. "Yeah, they mentioned that you used clones to do it." Rimuru snapped his fingers. "Exactly. And guess what? I never actually recalled all of my clones back. Many of them continued exploring the chasm's depths even while I was dealing with other matters. Some of them even entered the chasm's bed, and that's when they discovered the fantastic compass." He crossed his arms. "I did some research on it after that. That's how I learned that the compass was used to create the seal and couldn't be removed without severe consequences. That's also why I knew how dangerous that chaotic dimension was, because my clones had already entered it. Even right now, while we're standing here, they're still exploring it." The group was silent, absorbing his words. Rimuru continued. "So far, my clones have found thousands of passages leading to different locations. But out of all those paths, none of them have found a way to leave that place without teleportation or using this replica fantastic compass itself." Hearing this, Paimon gulped. "Well, it's a good thing we did get out of there." Ether nodded. "Yeah." Ito sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Man, all this compass and sealing talk is making my brain hurt." Rimuru chuckled before putting the replica compass back into his personal storage. Just as he did, Yanfei stepped forward, looking at him with a serious expression. Rimuru, can I ask for a favor? Rimuru raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, you want the compass, don't you? Yanfei nodded. I am just requesting it. If you don't want to hand it over, I won't ask again. Rimuru thought for a moment before shrugging. I don't mind. With a simple gesture, he summoned the replica compass again and handed it to her. Yellen glanced at him, her sharp gaze lingering. Are you sure you've already found everything you needed from it? Rimuru grinned. Yeah, I am. Yanfei took the compass, holding it carefully as she looked at him. I'm grateful for this. I won't forget it. Rimuru waved her off. Ah, it's not that big of a deal. His gaze then shifted to Xiao, who had been quiet. And what about you? What are you thinking? Xiao looked at him before shaking his head. Nothing. Now that everyone is safe, I'm going back. Ether stepped forward. Are you sure you don't need anything else? Xiao simply nodded before vanishing in a swirl of green energy. Rimuru turned back to the others. All right, let's go back then. One by one, the rest of the group began leaving. Soon, only Rimuru, Ether, and Paimon remained. Ether turned to Rimuru, his golden eyes serious. Don't you think you gave them a little too much information about yourself? Rimuru grinned. Oh, that was all part of the plan. Paimon tilted her head. Huh, what do you mean? Rimuru smirked. People often reveal a lot through their expressions and eyes when they learn something new about their opponent. I was just watching for that reaction. Paimon gasped. So you were just testing them? Rimuru nodded. Yes. Besides, the information I gave them wasn't important anyway. Ether sighed, now understanding his intent. I see. Paimon crossed her arms. You always say things that go way over Paimon's head. Rimuru chuckled. Don't think too much about it. Then, his expression turned more serious. Come on. We need to save someone in Sumeru, after all. With that, the three of them left, heading toward their next destination.